Hello, Darshan Maharaja here. I'm seeing many posts on social media nowadays complaining about the poor work ethic of Indian immigrants. Now, I thought this is a topic worth analyzing, dissecting, if you will, and see where the truth lies. These posts are necessarily a jumble of ideas. I don't blame the people making these posts for this. Uh, Given the limitations of social media and especially text-based social media like Reddit or X, there are limitations and they want to put all of their points across in a tight space. So these are all jumbles, but let us separate the components of the problem which I acknowledge exists, uh, and maybe we can call them strands, not components, but whatever the terminology we want to use. Let's see what the whole situation is made of, what the ingredients are, and where the truth lies. Because as I see it over the past, especially 4+ decades, immigrants from India had worked diligently and built up a reputation for being at least good workers, if not exceptional ones. But that reputation has taken a big hit because of mass immigration. So, it's something that we need to address and rectify because apart from the work front, there is also the social front involved here. We don't want animosity to be created or to grow between different groups of people in Canada. The first strand that I want to mention here is uh, the distinction between immigrants, especially those who have been here for a long time, and the people who come from India on temporary visas, such as uh, TFW, international student. There is also a global mobility program. And I think a sizable number of people come to Canada under that program as well. I'm not sure how many are from India, but basically we are looking at three main categories of temporary residents who are working most often in customer facing positions in Canada, and their performance or lack thereof is somehow rubbing off onto the people who have been here for years and decades and have built up a reputation, but now that reputation is in tatters, at least in public perception. So, I wanted to talk about the issue, giving an example. But before I do that, uh, let me emphasize that anecdotes are not data. Lord knows I have said that enough number of times. But I believe this anecdote from my personal life is representative of the broader situation as it existed before this whole chaos began. Uh, One day I had picked up my daughter from school and we were rushing to some event. So there wasn't the time to, go home and give her something to eat. This was around 3:30ish, so she would have been hungry. So I decided to stop at Tim Hortons that was on the way from the school to the event. And they had just launched cheese grilled panini or grilled cheese panini. I forget what the exact name was. But I thought that might be good for my daughter instead of something like a donut. So I went to the counter. I said I wanted a grilled cheese panini. And the lady, I could tell from her face, she was maybe in her early to mid 30s from the Indian subcontinent. And she just looked at my daughter and said, coming from school. And my daughter nodded yes. Uh, Immediately, this lady decided to add tomatoes, onion, and lettuce to the grilled cheese panini without asking me. Because as I saw it, her mother's instinct was kicking in now. She just looked at me and said, "The girl needs proper nutrition." It was like a declaration. She wasn't asking me if I because the price was going up with each item being added, the price was going up. But she felt like, this is the right way to feed a child at this time of the day. And she made the decision, informed me of her decision, and then proceeded to make the grilled cheese panini, gave it to me, and I paid and thank you, and we went. Now, this is the kind of involvement in the customer's requirement that is very, very hard to find now. Because when I see, any store outlet that you go, but particularly talking about these coffee joints and donut shops and bake shops and whatever, you find very young girls, maybe 18, 19 years old. They don't have the kind of experience in life to realize what that lady realized. That it's 3:30 now, which means the kid is coming from school. It's time for good nutrition. So let me do this. They lack that kind of experience. So, the image that was created by the incoming workforce, and I'll tell you more about that lady later on in this video, but that image has all been wiped out. This cultural gap is something that we need to work on. Because what happens is, these are all young kids. They grew up in a completely different social setup where they were maybe not required to do work in the home, the chores and all. Or maybe if they were, it was of a very different kind. Therefore, they are still, fumbling and trying to find out what to do in our new circumstances. I spoke about this some time ago. I think, yeah, precisely it was June of last year, when Toronto Star was doing a series of articles on how we can ensure that immigrants to Canada uh, have a better chance at success. That was a series of articles, and one of the reporters reached out to me, and we sat down and discussed. And I told her very clearly that you are looking at international students from India as one homogeneous group, but that is not the case. The ones who are going to top level universities like Waterloo or University of Toronto, those come from a very different cultural background compared to the ones that come to the colleges and even the pop-up colleges, the puppy mills so called. And we have to have different solutions for them. One solution which is applicable to one group is not necessarily applicable to the other. In fact, it is more or less bound to be the wrong approach to take. uh, First is the knowledge of English. That, a student coming to a top level university will have a much better command over English, at least written English, although their speech may not have as much fluency. But given the knowledge of English, it can be remedied in a short time. I remember in early 2019, there was a news report from Niagara College. They had decided to test those students again in English, students coming from India, because the college found that most of them were unable to follow instructions or the course that was being taught in the class. So they decided to test them again. This was in 2019. Now we are talking almost 5.5 years later. And this hasn't been tackled in a systematic way. So when someone's knowledge of English is not enough for them to follow what is being taught in class, in a face-to-face interaction with customers, they will struggle. How do we overcome that? Because the kids are here, the solution lies in situation before they are here. But our selection criteria have gone for a toss. Anybody who is applying basically gets admission. Acceptance rates at colleges are very close to 100%. Although, in fairness, IRCC does some job of filtering them out, as reported earlier this year. So 47% of the visa applications are rejected. Now, if we don't know if these were multiple applications from the same student, so it's still not clear as to whether everybody gets to come to Canada or not, but that's a separate discussion. Another part is the of this cultural angle is the sale of LMIA. I have spoken about that extensively, labor market impact assessment. So someone who has paid something like 40,000 or $50,000 for a job will have a completely different frame of mind when doing that work compared to someone who has been hired to be paid rather than pay to get the job. So that is another mess, complete area of corruption that is being allowed to go on and on. So that is another issue. If you hire a Canadian kid of any race, I'm not necessarily talking along racial lines here, of any race. If you hire a Canadian kid, that kid will be happy to have a job, happy to be acquainted with the workplace. This is supposed to be a first job in a person's life, etc. So that is again a cultural aspect that is coming into play in their interactions with customers. I see a lot of people also saying that Indians hire only their own kind, and I mentioned this earlier that quite often it is because the person being hired, the international student from India, is willing to pay to get that job. Secondly, and that is something that struck me yesterday, was that even the person doing the hiring may have a language barrier. So they would prefer to hire someone with whom they can talk in their native language rather than in English. Whereas kids who are from here of any race, their first language would default language in communication would be English. And therefore, the person doing the hiring feels less comfortable interacting with them. That is another angle. Then there is the age factor. This lady who changed my order of grilled cheese panini to something much better. She was in her early to mid 30s at a guess. And these kids are maybe 18, 19 years old. So that is the age factor. Now, another thing is, I still remember her name. It's been something like 17 years. I still remember her name. It was on her name tag. And now I see when I go to Tim Hortons, I haven't been in many, many months. Certainly not this year. So it's more than 5 months anyway. But when I go there, I see that the name is handwritten on the name tag. There is a paper slip which is stuck to the blank name tag. The name tag is still the same of metal, but the name is not embossed there. It is written on a strip of paper, and then that paper is stuck on that. So there is a race to the bottom by the employers. They want to employ people who cost them less and less in terms of manpower costs. As a result, they are resorting to methods and to potential pool of recruits that is creating a lot of imbalance in our society. That is causing a lot of resentment in our society. First of all, Canadians are being shut out of job opportunities. Secondly, there is this LMIA corruption. Thirdly, there is this uh, dissatisfactory experience of the customers. There are also cultural aspects of small gestures. For example, if you are entering a building and someone is right behind you, you hold the door open for that person. These are uh, cultural nuances that if someone is not familiar with those, they will not think of doing it. But once they are familiarized, they will do it. So again, when it comes to interacting with the customer, there may be very small, tiny, unnoticeable, almost nuances that the customer feels unhappy about. Those are the things because we don't put newcomers through a vestibule, so to speak, where they get acclimatized with the nuances of Canadian culture is another thing that is creating this bad feeling as customers. So the key issue is, as I said, the race to the bottom of the employers, and they raise social tension. These are the components or strands as I saw of the situation. I thought I'll put them out to you and for you to reflect and let me know in the comments what you think about this. Maybe I have missed something because this is a pretty big issue. So maybe I have missed something about this. If you feel like that, add that in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye and be well.